Hello, what we're going to be covering in this video is a program that uses nested if statements. So what we want to do is we want to write a program that computes taxes using the following schedule. So what we need to do is we need to check to see if the user is either single or married, and then based on if they're single and their income, then we would calculate our tax based on the following schedule. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and create some if statements to first check to see if they're single or married, and then after that to find out where their income level falls to calculate their tax. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into JGrasp next. I'm going to go ahead and create the program under Chapter 3. So let me just go ahead and create a new Java file. And the first thing I need to do is I need to import the scanner class, because we're going to be asking the user to input the information through the console. The next step then is to just go ahead and define our class, which is calculate tax. And then add my opening and closing curly braces. And then what we need to do is we need to go ahead and add our main method. And add my opening and closing curly braces. And the first thing we need to do in this program is to go ahead and create a scanner object that we're going to use to get input from the user via the console. So it'll just be our new scanner. And system.in. And we're going to prompt the user then using a println statement to enter if they're married or single. Okay, and then we'll basically use the next method to go ahead and store their input into our status variable, which is going to be set up as a string. Okay, then we need to go ahead and prompt the user to enter their income. And then we'll go ahead and save that in a double data type. The variable will be called income, and we need to go ahead and use the next double method to read that value. Okay, and then the final step is we are going to go ahead and declare a variable that's going to hold the amount of tax and initialize that value to 0. Okay, so now what we're ready to do is we're ready to go ahead and, based on what the user inputted as far as their status, to go ahead and check that status. So in order to do that, we'll use an if statement. And what we're going to use is we're going to use the compare to method of our string variable. So we're going to compare to whatever the user entered as their status to single, and again, if the compare to returns 0, then we know they entered single as their status. So what we're going to do then is I'm just going to go ahead and add my opening and closing curly braces, and then I'm going to add my else. And the else loop will fall into that is if they entered married as their status. So if they entered single, We're going to go ahead, add a comment. We're going down our single branch. So what we need to do is we need to check to see what their income was. So if our income is greater than $32,000, if we go back in and look at the graph, then the tax is $44,000 plus 25% times the income greater than $32,000. So if it is greater than $32,000, go ahead, add our curly braces, tab over. We'll just, numbers come from the tax schedule as a comment, and then our tax will equal 4,400 plus 0.25 times our income value minus 32,000. Okay, so that'll calculate the tax if the income is greater than 32,000. Now what we need to do is we need to add an else if statement. So else if our income is greater than 8,000. So if it is greater than 8,000, then but not over 32,000, it'll be $800 plus 15% times the amount of income greater than $8,000. So again, we'll add our opening and closing curly braces. Again, even if you only have one line under your if, you'll want to add those opening and closing curly braces, because if you add additional code, you may get some weird results. So we'll go ahead, our tax will equal 800 plus our 0.15, and we're going to multiply that by our income minus 8,000. And then finally, else if our income is greater than 0, we'll go ahead and add our curly braces. It'll be tax will equal 0.1 times our income. So again, based on our schedule, if it's between 0 and 8,000, it's just 10% of the amount over $0. Okay, so we have the information for the single. So now what we need to do is we need to add the married. And what I'm going to do is the loop's going to be similar. The values are just going to change. So I'm going to go ahead and copy down my loops. Make sure I have the right direction on my curly braces. Tab over. And then copy this down, but I'm going to update it so it shows the information for married versus a single. So we're going to show for married, and the threshold is 64. If we go back to the tax schedule diagram, it's 64, then 16 to 64, and then 0 to 16,000. So if it's greater than 64,000, the amount of tax is 8,800 plus is 25% times our income that is greater than 64,000. Our next level is going to be at 16,000. So our tax will equal 1,600. And plus 15% times our income that is greater than 16,000. And then finally, if our income is greater than 0, it'll just be the same. It'll be our tax would be equal to 1 times our income. And I need to make sure and add my semicolons after that line. So what we're going to do then is we're just going to go ahead and print the information out. The amount of tax that they owe. So we're going to use a system out printf. And what we're going to do is you owe, and then our format string will be a % in dot 2f in tax, and we'll add in the new line, and then we'll just go ahead and add our tax on the next line. So again, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be formatting the value that gets returned. We'll put the $sign in front of it, and then we're going to format it with 2 decimal places to the right of that value. So let me just go ahead and compile this program. We'll go ahead, click on Save. We want to go ahead and save it as Calculate Tax. So the program looks like it's compiled fine, so we don't have any compile errors. So what we're going to be doing in the next video is we're going to be testing some values to make sure that we have our if statements set up correctly.